A popular narrative in our culture today is that a conflict exists between science and the Christian faith. Skeptics argue that science makes belief in God unreasonable and renders the biblical creation accounts unbelievable. But is this the case? To help me answer this question today, I'm joined by Dr. Eddy del Rio, a medical doctor and a Christian. Eddy, what would you say to someone who says there's conflict between science and the Christian faith?
Well, AJ, it sort of depends on who I'm speaking with and the context that we're standing in. I have basically a light and medium and kind of heavy answers that I use depending on the situation.
Okay, so let's hear your light answer first. Let's say we're in the elevator together and I've just made some kind of comment that these two things are in conflict.
Well, I would say, is there conflict? I would say, no, there is no conflict. All we have to do is examine the history of science, and especially of the scientific revolution. Modern science was born in Christian Europe. It wasn't born in Taoist Japan, Buddhist China, Hindu India, or in the pantheistic or spiritist islands around the world. It was born in the heart of what some may call Christendom. And some of the famous scientists were the ones who even brought new branches of science to be and had laws and constants named after them. People that come to mind are like Pascal, Newton, Faraday, Boyle. There's a light elevator answer for you.
There you go. And you could always throw Kepler in there too.
Of course.
So that's great. Oh, okay, let's say I had a little bit more time. We're standing around drinking a cup of coffee together. What would be your coffee answer or medium answer?
My medium answer. In that case, I would say, no, there isn't a conflict. And I would say that the following things that we observe, I believe, are better explained by the God hypothesis than naturalism. One would be that there is a universe that exists at all. The universe is contingent. It didn't have to be. It wasn't a necessity, but yet we have it. But more impressively, there's organization in the universe. And the universe is finely tuned so that it operates in such a manner that life is even possible. Thirdly, I would say that the existence of life at all is amazing in that when we think about life at the cellular level, as you very well know, life is about creating and maintaining this equilibrium of substances in order to drive metabolism and other things. And I want to emphasize, create a sequestered and maintain this equilibrium. However, nature is all about seeking equilibrium. And in fact, if this equilibrium happens in a cell, we call it death. So what we have is nature is, in a sense, trying to kill us with equilibrium, yet we have life. And finally, another thing that is easier and more convincingly explained by the God hypothesis is consciousness from matter. The fact that we can even think about thinking.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. And it's really hard to understand how a naturalistic mechanism might explain that type of leap to consciousness, right? So,
yes.
So that's a great coffee answer, and I'm sure that I would engage you much more with more questions as we really
all of these answers are designed to enable further conversation.
Great. So let's see, your heavy answer. I guess that's if we had the afternoon to knock some things around. Where would you lead in? How would you lead into your heavy answer?
These concepts are a little more difficult, and they would be a philosophical answer. There is a famous Christian theist, analytic philosopher named Alvin Plantinga, and he actually wrote a book that answers the very question you asked me. And the title of the book is Where the Conflict Lies, Science, Religion, Naturalism. The book is not easy reading, as most philosophy books aren't, but he very convincingly makes the case that, in fact, I'll quote from him. He says this, he says, "There is superficial conflict, but deep accord between science and theistic religion. However, there is superficial concord, but deep conflict between science and naturalism." The consequences of that thought, he expresses in the book, is that a naturalist really has no warrant or grounding for trusting their reason or ability to seek and know truth. He makes the case that there's nothing in naturalism that requires us to think true thoughts. In fact, he goes on to say that natural selection is interested not in truth, but in appropriate behavior. Well, as you very well know, natural selection's business is two items: survival and reproduction.
That's right.
And so basically Plantinga is arguing that there's nothing that requires our thoughts to actually be true in order to produce the end result of survival and reproduction.
Yeah.
I would add one more thing.
Okay.
Some people may say, but he's a theistic philosopher. The same problem of the conflict between science and naturalism is dealt with by an atheistic philosopher, a very distinguished man named Thomas Nagel. He wrote a book, the title of which is Mind and Cosmos, but it's the subtitle that really says it all: Why the Materialist Neo-Darwinian Conception of Nature is Almost Certainly False. So even atheist philosophers have found the problems here.
So that's great. Thanks, Eddie. And what I heard you say is whether it's a light, medium, or heavy answer, your answer is basically no. And that the conflict doesn't really exist between science and the Christian faith, but the greater conflict is between science and naturalism.
That is correct, AJ.
Thanks, Eddie.